how the last episode ended and how this one starts, I'm just like, whoa. I feel like we skipped over something that probably was pretty important to all of us here, but I guess we're just not gonna ever address that. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tardy to the Party, aka T3P, where us two hooligans talk shop about the holy trinity of pop culture. Marvel, DC, and Star Wars. I'm your boy Jsib, joined by, as always,
And I'm KP here.
Season 3, Episode 5 of The Bad Batch. Almost screwed myself and did like episode 3 or 4 because I got those three episode drop at the beginning. But
You had to think for a minute, yeah.
But here we are. I don't. This one's kind of a miss for me, if I'm being honest. But KP for season 3, episode 5. What's your thoughts for the Bad Batch?
Yeah, it was a pretty indifferent feeling episode. Kinda like you're just kinda like, okay, that was entertaining. I mean, I think the way that it very much starts, you're just kinda just wasn't what I was expecting.
Left kind of feeling
So
like, what the hell?
yeah. Then as we get into the meat of the episode, it's character growth a little bit for Crosshair, and Hunter and his relationship, I think, seems to maybe getting back on the right track. So yeah, it was kind of a indifferent feeling episode, and I think that's got a lot to do with the way that it started. Yeah, yeah, it's kind of mid, as the kids
Yeah.
like to say, kind of mid.
Um. Yeah, very middle of the road, but it felt very like fillery, but in like not in like the good way. You know, how sometimes you get like a good filler and you're like, yeah, it was filler, but I liked it. This one, not so much, especially with what you alluded to of how the last episode ended and how this one starts. I'm just like, whoa. I feel like we skipped over something that probably was pretty important to all of us here, but I guess we're just not gonna ever address that. We will in a weird roundabout way, but not actually really. Best as I can describe it without getting spoilery, but yeah, I mean, it's an episode. You get, trust me, I like Crosshair development. It's mainly about that and his and Hunter's relationship for the most part, but not a lot here. And I was really expecting us to get like a really kind of poignant and emotional moment and interaction with the batch since they're all now together. And, we don't quite get that in my. That's an L. Uh, but yeah, that's all I can really say. Without getting into spoilers. So, KP, I don't know exactly how you want to do spoilers with Bad Batch. I don't know if you really want to do just the classic, just break down what happened, or just talk about what we've talked about.
Well, so we both kind of made that point, how we felt like the beginning just eh, seems like there's a feeling of something got skipped over because now all of a sudden we're back on the planet that's the safe haven that I don't recall the name of right now, but they basically are living on that like island city. Um, the one that's like looks very much like Minas Tirith and Lord of the Rings, where it's just like there's levels that kind of go up this mountain of this city. Uh, but yeah, it we've never had too much of direct sequels for episodes in the series, but still you would kind of think with the way that the cliffhanger ended on episode 4, we would get something immediately right there at the start of episode 5. But that was not really the case. We just kind of are immediately all back on seemingly the paradise, if you will, and then um, oddly, Omega is trusted to kind of hang around Crosshair, which, as we know, the history of seasons 1 and 2 is kind of odd with Hunter and Wrecker. You wouldn't really think that's how it would all go, but anyways, yeah, Crosshairs essentially kind of goes through a lot of character development in this episode, but um, before getting into that, yeah, it's just I think you and I are in agreement that maybe we thought that this episode should have immediately picked up from that cliffhanger on episode 4 to get some sort of dialogue and confrontation, but we don't get that, and then instead it's just kind of this whole, well, that this is the team now and we're on this safe haven, but two of us really don't trust this other one because he was, not really a great person for the past couple of years or so. I don't really know the time jumps within this show, but yeah, it just it felt a little unfulfilling there at the beginning.
Yeah, it's just I don't really understand that from artistic choice, especially when you make it such a cliffhanger moment. The last episode, and to me, when this first started, I was like, "Oh, we're okay. We're not starting from there. Maybe at one point in this episode, we'll get a flashback to that moment. Maybe so that maybe that I figured maybe midway through the episode, the way it was going, I was like, maybe we'll get the flashback at the midpoint. We'll have that confrontation there, probably between a major fallout between Crosshair and Hunter, and then they'll hopefully resolve that by the end of the episode. It's like, well, I was kind of right, but they just didn't use the first part of that formula like at all. Um, yeah, weird choice. I'm not a fan of that at all. I really would have liked to seen that conversation of them all being back together again, especially with, well, Echo comes back, but obviously with Tech being gone, but that was still the first interaction of Crosshair being back, and we're just gypped out of that. I feel like that's kind of shitty. As like a fan, like I think it's a piss poor choice. I don't know why you would do that, but whatever. Maybe later in
And
the
then
season we'll see it. I don't know.
well, and then as the episode kind of goes on, it's alluded to a little bit here. After the fact, we kind of get that confrontation. Later, Hunter just finally decides to confront Crosshair and asks him, like, well, you stabbed us in the back, so what did you do to piss off the Empire, and why aren't you on their good graces anymore? And, of course, at first, Crosshair kind of dodges that question and doesn't really answer, and then Hunter catches him, um, stacking the clone helmets that were on the ground, that he knew that those were like the dead clones. He starts stacking the helmets up, and as like a memorial to them, and Hunter just kind of caught it, and obviously after all the whole shenanigans of the episode goes down, um he finally just decides to tell Hunter, once the trust is kind of mutually, I think, gained a little. That he's like, all right, I shot an officer. I killed an officer. They had us. He's like, I thought the Empire was great and was gonna take care of the clones and us. And he's like, and I was wrong. He's basically said how he the glass finally shattered for him. That no, you were expendable and you were from an old time, and the Empire's trying to phase you all out, and he's just kind of sort of says this to Hunter, and that's kind of like how we get our conflict resolution, if you will, between these two.
Yeah, he gets the realization of that him and all of his brothers and clones are just can't remember what the exact verbiage is, but basically like once you've lived out your usefulness or what the Empire needed you for, they don't care about expendable. It's the clones, and obviously us as viewers, we've been seeing that from the outside for a while. But yeah,
Mm.
it's cool to. I mean, I like the whole with Crosshair, the whole PTSD tie-in. At least that's how I'm kind of taking it with the whole like his hand shaking. It could be other stuff too, maybe since he's a clone,
I
and
th
whatnot, a modified
I
clone.
think you're right. I think that's what it's supposed to be.
But so that's kind of cool. I mean, there's even cool like musical notes in this. Like Crosshair almost seemingly has his own theme. Feels like at this moment, and it feels like the theme kind of plays on his emotion, on how he's feeling. Um, like in this episode, at one point when he actually like finally um steps up, kind of gives it like more of a heroic feel. While I think episode had a much more like somber and sad feel, which might have been in the scene where he picks up the helmets. Actually, that might have been that scene. But it's the same tune. It's just it has different. I'm not a musician as far as being able to explain, but definitely has a much more heroic feel to it later on in the episode, where Crosshair kind of, which I think you've talked about this a little bit. That bird, or maybe it's somebody else has told me that the bird that's flying over kind of is kind of like a symbol of like freedom. And in this episode, the bird when it first shows up is like very very cloudy and in this like dust, and it's like not very, you can't really see it very well. But by the end of the episode, it's very very visual to Crosshair, and it feels like Crosshair's finally kind of got a grasp on his freedom, his newfound freedom anyway. So there's some cool artistic touches to this episode. Like we said, Crosshair's the one that gets really any development at all in this episode, which normally I'd be all for, but I don't know. Maybe I'm being a sour puss. They didn't feed it to me the way I wanted them to, so now I just don't really like it.
Yeah, you just kind of would have thought there'd be a lot more emotion between he and Hunter, but and there was emotion, but it wasn't heightened as you would think. I mean, we are talking about a character that literally kind of stabbed them in the back the entire first season. And then yeah, by the end of it all, Crosser has saved Omega before. And he's saved all of their asses before too. Like
And as he pointed
he
out,
he
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 tried warning them last season about him.
he did well, yeah, and I did like
That was a
that
big
call
point.
out
Yeah,
how I did like that call out of like he said to Hunter, he's like, "You're not mad at me." He's like, "You're mad because I tried to warn you, you ignored it, and it got Omega caught." And Hunter, I don't think retorted to that. He didn't rebuttal. Because
I
at
don't think
that
so.
point, I think because at that point, like the worm was being a problem for them. But yeah, I mean that was also like a good call out by Crosshair was but again, I mean, at the same time, it's like you can't blame Hunter because why would you trust him? I mean,
Right.
as we know back in that season, like he got the call and he brought it up, and I think Wrecker and Tech both like we were like, we can't trust him. You can't trust him. But because they didn't know that
Right.
Crosshair was actually betraying the Empire because he at that point was done with them. So that was a cool call out. And then yeah, of course, again, later at the end he just basically says like, here's why I did that, Hunter. It's yeah. Um yeah, I was shown the light. And the bird, yeah, I took that symbolism as well, that it was like supposed to mean like, new horizons, new freedom for him. They do the same with Ahsoka and an owl that I won't get
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
So it is like a theme in Star Wars to kind of show a bird that kind of gives like freedom and hope and like the light side symbolism for said good guys. So that was a cool artistic touch, I'll agree. Um, Yeah, with what actually happens in this episode, they go to this outpost because they need to steal codes or something, basically, so they can get back to um the scientist's base. I can't remember his name; it's escaping me right now. Um,
Uh,
Begins with an H.
yeah. Hemlock.
Hemlock's base. That's it. Yeah. So I know that like they're essentially just kind of hacking into the system at this old abandoned outpost just for stuff like that, and that's like that's like the part that's like this is filler, just for what's going to eventually come later down the line. But the character development though is at least the more is supposed to be more the highlight of the episode. So
Yeah, and I
it's
mean,
like again, that's kind of why I say the episode is mid because it's the plot point of what is going on is very filler esque and it's necessary, but it's just kind of one of those episodes, and then the underlying plot of like the character development for Crosshair and the relationship development, the gaining that trust again for Hunter and Crosshair is the highlight of the episode. Like that's what's good for the episode, but what's bad for the episode is the entire sequence of like go to a snow planet, Hoth Junior, if you will. Um, a worm comes because they shut
thank
off
God it's
power
not
to a
Tatooine.
yeah. Yeah, it's snow or sand, one of the two. Take your pick. So that whole part of it is just like, okay, this song and dance again. That's kind of how you feel sometimes with Star Wars. Like, oh, this shit again, I guess. But yeah. So again, that's why I'm just gonna say like the episode's pretty mid. I don't really have much else to say about it actually. Uh, I don't really have any.
Yeah, you can give your rating. Well,
Uh,
last thing I'll
yeah.
really say I can just give in my score and final thought.
I don't know. For me, since I'm saying the episode was mid, I'm gonna give it a pretty mid score, and I'll say it's pretty much a 6 out of 10 for me. It's not nothing amazing. You know.
Yeah, for me it's a 5.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's an
right in the
L
middle. Yeah.
on certain things. I think it also hurts that this is the 5th episode. It still feels like it's been 5 episodes of them paving the
Mm-hmm.
road and not actually really getting much anywhere. Which
Yeah,
is
it's like they've paved about 3 feet of this road.
yeah, and we're yeah.
There are like yes, there are 15 episodes, but I feel like too with the fact that it's also the last season we're gonna have this show, guys. That for all you that are out there watching, listening, we should be given a lot more than this. This is just kind of snooze. It'd be nice to get some other just characters. Obviously Ventress is coming at some point, so eh, I don't know how soon that's going to be, but yeah, I mean, yeah, there's 10 more episodes, but I really hope they start taking off here.
Yeah, I mean, other than the conversation between Hunter and Crosshair at the end, the only highlight for me is when Wrecker gives uh, Crosshair his armor back and was like, it just, even despite as big of a piece of shit you were, because you were, it never felt right to throw it away. I just thought that was a really cool moment. Um, so yeah, that's really the only highlights for this for me. Yeah, I'm just come on the final season, like you said. Let's get fucking going, Brit.
Yeah, just give us some more. Just give us some like more entertaining. Like you've given us the action definitely like well in 3 of the episodes you've given us the action, but let's hope then the next 10 like there's like it's a lot more entertaining,
Yeah,
a lot
uh,
more interesting. Like we see different stuff.
yeah. I mean, I just don't want a bunch of side bullshit filler for 5 to 6 more episodes. Finally, we have like 5 episodes of hotness. No, the final season, like be hitting all the big marks. And if you couldn't do it in 15 episodes, you should have chopped it down and then kept it more just concise and but all right. Any more thoughts, KP?
Yeah, I know. I just I'm gonna echo that. But yeah, hopefully we don't have too many more filler feeling episodes as we go on, but we'll have to see. And over the course of this next 2 months, so that's really
Alrighty.
all I got to say left.
Well, until next time, KP, where can the people?
Oh, you guys can always find us. We both stream on Twitch. I stream at Politusk. And from there, we got a link below my name here. All socials are the same name. And you can always find my channel through there. And mostly stick to Tuesdays and Thursdays. And we'll probably start doing a little more often. Just because gonna start getting into some other games. But yeah.
I think you can also find me on Twitch and yeah, actually all the socials that I'm actually active on at your boy Jsib. Once again, like he alluded to, links are down below. Yeah, also if you're a DC fan, we are pretty much ending our DC EU review in memoriam here soon on the channel. So if you're into that, check that out as well. But other than that, give us a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more. Until next time, I'm your boy Jsib.
And I'm KP.
See ya later.